Hey, I'm Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through all the parts that I include in a lesson plan for reading tutoring. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love for you to do that now, and then also hit the little bell to be notified anytime I post a brand new video about teaching literacy. Reading tutoring is great for so many reasons. Obviously, it's a way to earn extra income either over the summer or after school, but it's also just so rewarding because as a classroom teacher or reading specialist, it's unlikely that you get a ton of time to work one-on-one with kids. Maybe you do, but for many teachers, we don't. And so when you get to tutor, you get to just learn so much about that child and have that really rewarding relationship that you're building, get to see progress in them. It's just, you can really make a big impact on a child that way. And it's also super rewarding for you. And I think that one-on-one work has helped me improve my practice because of the level of detail that I've gotten to, look at with a child and really differentiate and make whatever I'm teaching so specific to them. So I might be biased, but I think reading tutoring is such an amazing experience. So if you're watching this, you might already be teaching reading in the classroom or maybe even doing reading intervention, which is great. And you might wonder, how is this different when I'm tutoring in the summer? And the answer is, it doesn't have to be super different. I would say the main difference is frequency. If a child is behind, I do recommend usually twice a week tutoring. And then I will also give the parent optional activities that they can do in between, because for kids that are struggling with reading, once a week, it's, it can help, but twice a week can make a bigger difference. But even if you are doing once a week, you still can totally make a difference for that child. And I would recommend giving the parent some materials that they can use in between times, even if it's just a little game or a quick activity here and there, just something to reinforce what you're doing. But anyway, when you're tutoring, the first thing that I do, just as if I was working with a student in school, is I am going to figure out what their needs are. And the way to do that is assessment. The nice thing about only having one student at a time anyway, is that you can really get through your assessments pretty quickly in that first session. And the assessments that you give, of course, are gonna depend on what the student's abilities are. So you might be doing a letter sounds assessment, you might be doing something with phonemic awareness, you might be doing a word reading assessment, a word spelling assessment. The word reading and word spelling assessments that I have here are really helpful because it's broken up by phonics skill here. So you can see after you give it oh, well, they only got 1 out of 3 silent E words. So this is an area of practice, that we need to work on. And always start if you're doing something like this, always start with the easiest skill first, right? So maybe they missed some diphthongs, but if they didn't get their blends, then you have to go back and start with blends because that comes first. I also do think that it's helpful to see kids reading actual connected text in addition to just reading a list of words. So I might, you can get a grade level passage from readworks.org for free. And you can see how many words can they read in a minute? What is their accuracy like? So that's something that I always look at too. As soon as I gather as much information as I can, then I can really start looking at, where are they in comparison to where they're supposed to be? It's helpful to know if you can get that from the parent, what phonics skills were covered in their past year of, school that they were in. But if you can't get that information, that's fine. You can still totally make it work. It's always just, helpful to see oh, well, maybe they don't know diphthongs yet, but that might not have been taught. So any background too that you can get from the parent just on how did the school year go this year? What were the teachers' comments? The very beginning is all about data gathering. And I don't spend forever on this stage, but I do want some really good information because again, reading tutoring, especially when it's one-on-one, is just a great way to dive deep into exactly what that child needs and to give them what they need, which often is not possible for them in the classroom if the other kids are more advanced, or even if the child is advanced, right? And the rest of their class is kind of down here. This is your opportunity to know their needs specifically and to address them. So after I have information on how they're doing with phonemic awareness, letter name knowledge, letter sound knowledge, if applicable, phonics knowledge, fluency, comprehension, can they answer, can they retell, can they answer some basic literal questions? Can they answer some inferential, like slightly higher level questions about a text? Once I have all that information, I kind of make my plan of attack, and I have to prioritize. So in the Reading Intervention Collaborative, which I'll include a link to in the caption for this video, there are tons of assessments like I was just showing you, but then also kind of like if-then tools, so you can see like, okay, well, this needs to be an area of focus for us. Or, you know, if the student is struggling with this and that, maybe there is a word reading difficulty, to really help you dig deep and figure out the most information that you can. So again, you can prioritize, because typically with reading tutoring, you're limited on time. You're doing maybe once, maybe twice a week, but the time that you have is limited. So you have to choose the highest priority skills and get as much possible as you can in that hour. So typically a tutoring session will last between 30 and 60 minutes. This depends on how old the kiddo is. I feel like for kindergarten, or even like if we're talking pre-K, I feel like 30 minutes is plenty. Or if you want to do longer, there's definitely going to need to be some like play or activity break in the middle. I can usually make about 45 to 60 minutes work with like first grade and up. But again, it really depends on the kiddo. So now we're thinking about planning our sessions. What I really like to do, and what I think is fun at the beginning of a reading tutoring session, is to have some kind of game. We have lots of games in the Reading Intervention Collaborative. Again, the link will be in the caption. But this game I use to review skills. I'm not teaching a new skill here. I'm just letting them like typically read words that are on a game board or something. And it's a fun way to ease into the session as well as sneak in that review. So often we'll start with that game. I will sometimes do flashcards. It might be different, it could literally just be alphabet letters. It could be different phonics skills. And we don't spend a ton of time on this review, but it also is a good thing to build kids' confidence, because after you do these assessments and like, oh, this kid knows short vowels, great. Like maybe let's review a couple of short vowels just at the beginning to reinforce it and give them a chance to do something that they know how to do. So following the warm-up, typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach a new concept. It could be a review if I don't feel like we've mastered it from the previous session. But so like this could be something like digraph SH. It could be dividing 2-syllable VCCV words. It's just going to depend on what you have uncovered from your decoding and spelling assessments. Typically here we're talking about kids that are struggling with some kind of phonics skill, issue or decoding issue. If you do have a student who's really just struggling with fluency and comprehension, then your new skill would be different, right? It might be working on asking questions when they're reading a text, or, reading with appropriate intonation, or reading the punctuation marks correctly. So your new skill is going to depend on what they need. But for many of you watching this, you're going to be working with kids that are struggling with decoding. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on more of a phonics skill. So I'll teach the new skill. And again, this will vary based on what it is, but they are then going to read and spell individual words with the skill. So if it's SH, they're going to read short vowel SH words. They're going to spell short vowel SH words. I usually keep it really tied to that phonics skill the first time, because it is good to mix in other words. But if something is brand new, I'm just going to focus on that one skill first, and I can weave in other skills later on. So after that, we'll usually take some kind of break, even if it's just getting up and stretching for a little bit. And then I want to have them using this new skill in context, and possibly weaving in other previously taught skills to kind of help them compare and contrast. So like if you're working on digraph CH and you recently did SH, those are digraphs that kids often confuse. And so once we've focused exclusively on the new skill, now I might weave in some other past skills. So what we actually do at this point is going to depend, and it might be different, a little bit different from day to day. But it could be something like reading a decodable text. A decodable text is going to focus on whatever skill we just practiced. It could be like a little bit more formal dictation. You can do it on a whiteboard, but I also have like this dictation paper where the kid writes the word, you give immediate feedback and then they copy it correctly, but you still have their original spelling. Because the thing about reading tutoring is also you're getting so much information during the sessions about what they're getting right and what they're getting wrong. So you want to make sure that you're writing that down and recording it. And if you have a written dictation, that's nice too, because you can go back and refer to it later. So it might be something like that. We may work on a sentence dictation. And actually I have that at the bottom here where I dictate a sentence that maybe has some high frequency words that are, you know, things that we've been working on or things that they already know. It'll have the target skill like digraph SH or whatever it is, and then, you know, maybe a word or two with previously taught skills. So we're taking what they've learned and we're trying to get them to apply it to, you know, reading with the decodable text and then spelling with the dictation. Now, somewhere in there, you also could work on high frequency words if this is an area of need for students. With the decodable text too, you might have a fluency teaching point, like let's make our voice go up at the end when we're asking a question, when there's a question mark. I work on comprehension with the decodable text as well. And this is like how much time you spend on this is really going to depend on your student needs. I know I'm giving kind of like broad strokes here, but again, when you know, have the tools to really dig in and look at like what do they need to work on, whether you're using stuff from the RIC or your own assessments, that is really what's going to supercharge your sessions, is knowing where they need to work. But regardless of what you're doing, you do want to be teaching a new skill. You want to be giving them practice with that new skill. You want to be giving them in context practice. You can do things like word sorts where they're comparing digraphs SH, digraphs CH. You want to make sure that you are reviewing, like we talked about at the very beginning. You want to make sure you're giving them movement breaks. And then my recommendation is also to give stuff to the child's family, even if it's just like, hey, we played this game, you guys can play this at home, right? Just something simple that they can do that's not going to take up a ton of time, but will continue to reinforce what you're working on with them. Okay, so if you are doing tutoring, whether in the summer or all year long, I would love for you to have a ton of resources that would make assessing kids and, you know, playing games with them and reading decodables and having words to give them for the dictation. And I have all that in the Reading Intervention Collaborative. So I'll include a link in the caption for this video about how you can join the Reading Intervention Collaborative, but it's really handy for tutoring because, you know, there's lesson outlines that you can use. It's just something where you can pick it up and say, hey, kids need this skill. Okay, I go here in the intervention or the RIC resource library and I grab what I need and then I go. So check that link out in the caption. Again, it's called the Reading Intervention Collaborative. And I would also love in a comment for you to share a resource that you feel would be really helpful or is very helpful when you're tutoring in reading. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful and happy tutoring.